Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another Touchpoint Group Banking App Insight session. And we're looking at the US regional banks for November 2022. And we're going to be digging into Fifth Third Bank after their recent major release in their app with a new UI. And not necessarily universally well received, Tony Patrick, but we've seen this before. I'll hand it over to you, my friend.
Yeah, we have. You're right, Glenn. So just today covering off US regionals with TD Bank, Regions, Fifth Third, Citizens, Key Bank, and Huntington. And I'll just jump in like I usually do and straight into having a look at some scores here. So first of all, there's a few things going on here. We can see one of the things I can see here is that, for example, TD has had a drop recently, but they're picking up. So they're obviously aware of what's going on and making those changes. There's a few things jumping around here. Even Huntington had that massive increase. They're on a positive trajectory, but it is jumping around a fair bit at this point. But it is fairly positive. Now, again, this score we've got going here is the engaged customer score. So it's the score coming from the App Store and the Google Play Store. And what we're seeing is basically these are people who've given a score and a comment. And that allows us to have very sensitive movements in what's going on here. So we don't see typically what you see in the app stores, for example, is very flat numbers. Pretty much all the apps are the same, and you can't see any much of a difference. But here we can see a difference. Now, one of the things we've seen here is which I want to have a focus on today, is Fifth Third. So Fifth Third was sort of doing reasonably well up until July, sitting around 3.75. So amongst the best, sort of sitting there nicely. There was a bit of a drop away in August and September, but obviously you can turn that around. But there's been a particular drop in November, and we know why that's happened. We can show you in a moment, but that's a very massive drop from around 2.75 down to 1.75. So getting towards that 1.5 level the lowest score you can get on this is 1. So it's obviously there's pain for customers coming through here. So let's have a look at what's actually going on inside here. So first of all, I like to have a look at what are these app releases? What's going on here? So prior to that drop, these are the version releases and the frequency here. So what we're seeing here is version 3.66. I'll just mouse over that, and this is for Fifth Third. Version 3.66 had a score of 3.4. So that was sort of sitting. It wasn't their best score, but it was sort of still up there. They're still doing okay. Now, obviously, there's a transition to the next version, which is a major release at version 4. So version 4 is sitting there, but the score you can see there is 1.6 in that pop-up. So it's gone from that score of 3.4 down to 1.6. And there has been a fix attempted in between there as version or a newer update, 4.0.1. But that hasn't turned things around necessarily. It's actually, the average score is still 1.4. So let's have a look, though, at a bit of detail in this. So first of all, I'd like to just have a brief look at what I'd like to call a helicopter view of what's going on inside here. So broadly, this is version 3.66. You can see at the top there. And basically, there's a few big red things: good service provider, good company, good bank. It's all positive stuff going on. There's a few smaller negative things. There's maybe issues with Touch ID and a few settings issues going on there as well. So, but it's not. There's no major shout outs about what might be the problem here. But then I hit version 4, and what I'll do, I'll actually put version 4 and version 4.01 together, because they're pretty much doing the same thing. I'll just put those together in here. So looking at both of those down the bottom. Now, the first thing I'll do is look at what's the vibe, or what are the sort of the comments coming through broadly. And we can see here it's the new update, horrible update. So clearly there's problems going on with that update, and customers can see it. So let's get to a bit of detail, though. Let's see what specifically is the problem. So look at this concept area, and what we can see here when this pops up is basically poor app user interface. So it's not about reliability, although there's a couple of things in there. It's not about logging in issues, although there are some small things. It's basically the user interface. To be fair, though, on Fifth Third, this is reasonably common when you get a major release and major changes. People like to go on autopilot. They're used to what they're used to, and suddenly it's changed in front of them. And again, that can be disrupting for them. It depends how long it takes them to come out of this cycle as well. So next time they go in, they might get used to it. They might understand the change, and then it's all good. So obviously Fifth Third have done this for a reason. They're looking at best practice about what might be the best things to improve on. But customers initially, which is usual, have got some issues. So let's have a look, though, at what people are talking about in terms of poor user interface. Let's have a look at maybe a few negative things in here. Let's look at sort of, let's go down to the ones and twos just so we can focus on here. But basically, we can see here, actually, I might go to the long version. We can see any more comments coming through here. First one, horrible design. But again, here, the layout's horrible. I hate the new layout, the new look, dislike the new layout, the worst look. The layout's cumbersome. It's garbage. So again, I don't want to go into in all the detail here, but again, the interface is bad. So again, this is causing issues for customers. They're not used to this. They're not used to finding what they're, again, things like basic stuff they need to find, things like, how to see their most recent transactions and things like that. And it's hard to navigate to get to a lot of the things they're trying to do. So don't look how it's laid out. It's a bland look. It's difficult to find things. So again, I think this is one of the things where Fifth Third need to give us a close eye on what's going on here, because this could obviously cause an issue ongoing if they don't see if they just sit back and think, well, this is normal. They need to see what's going on. They can change in the short term. Let's have a quick look, though, at another effect of this compared to others, for example. So first of all, I'm going to have a look here at what we're looking at is poor app user interface. So there's a percentage of people talking about poor user interface. And we can see this hovers under 2%. It hits below 1 sometimes. This is for Fifth Third. And it's hovering along, great. Obviously, in November, we saw an increase in that. So it's gone to 10% in November. And that's fairly high. Obviously, historically, it is for Fifth Third. Let's have a look, though, how that compares to others. So what I'll do here is I'm just looking at October. So this is before that the decline in score. And we can see that Fifth Third is sitting at 1.3%, which is pretty much in line with others. It's about the average across here. A few others sort of hit above 2 and so on. So you can see it's doing reasonably well there. But if I change this to November, what we can do then is see the impact of that. So we already know what the score is, so I've given that away at 10%. So 10% of the feedback is talking about a poor user interface. And as we saw here, this is well above others. Like again, this is probably 15 times Santander US, and more than 5 times the second place here. So clearly issues going on. Fifth Third need to keep an eye on this to make sure it doesn't get out of control.
Yeah, some telling stats there. But like you said, we've seen this before, I think most notably with Wells Fargo when they released their new major update for their UI. And I'm sure we'll see it again. The trick will be how fast you can come out of this and how quickly you can get your customers used to these sorts of things. So maybe some pre-planning and some comms and getting people pre-warning them about what the release was going to be like can help minimize the impact of these things. Right, and January we'll be back, looking back at the year of 2022 in review. Who were the movers and shakers, and what were those most notable events in the banking app landscape for 2022 and what we can learn from it. Have a great one, folks.